Okay, so now that we know how the program is supposed to behave, let's start picking through these exercise instructions. And in this video, I'm going to just focus on the function. That's an important part of this assignment. And so here we have some exam instructions, or exercise instructions, I should say. And so first and foremost, we're told to write a function called getLetterGrade. So this function is going to be responsible for assigning A, B, C, D, F, as well as calculating the average, which is how we get the A, B, C, D, or F. And very importantly, this function will return a character type or a char type. So, let me just pull up the code so we can talk about that. We're just going to take this slowly here. So I have defined the function here at the top before main. We had talked about like doing a prototype first up at the top and defining the function at the bottom. But there's just one function in this program, and I think by now we know you can skip the prototype as long as you define the function, meaning write out the code for the function as I have here before main. Okay, so that's what I've done here. So let's, thinking back to those instructions, we were told to create a function called getLetterGrade. Okay, so there's a function name, and it has a return type of char, or character return type. So recall that the return type goes out in front here. So that's how we get char getLetterGrade. So let's look at the instructions again here. And moving on, it says this function will also have two float parameters called mid and fin to represent a student's midterm and final grades. So again, let's look at how that translates to code. We have two float parameters called mid and fin. So ultimately, we're going to pass the student's midterm and final grades into this function as arguments. And you know what? I can show you that code quickly here. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about this, but look at, this is me calling the function and passing midterm and final grades as arguments from main. I'm in main here. So these will ultimately end up coming through the door here. And then once they're inside the function, those values are inside the function, we can let the function do its thing. So at this point, we're creating a float variable called ABG for the average and a char variable called letter that's going to hold the A, B, C, D, or F. Okay, we will compute the average based on the midterm and final score. So just adding those two together and dividing by 2. And then we'll code an if-else to assign the letter grade. Okay, and then very importantly, once we assign that letter grade, we're going to return that letter grade back to main. Okay, recall that the function has a char return type. We're returning an A, B, C, D, or F. So let's look at the logic here. So we were told to create an AVG variable. I'm initializing that to a nice clean 0. I have a char variable called letter to represent the letter grade, and I'll initialize that to a null string. Recall that character literals or character constants go in single quotes, not double quotes like strings. That's a little detail that's easy to forget. Single quotes on individual characters. Okay, so here I'm just getting an average. Notice me using my parameter names. Like these are the midterm and the final grades coming through the door. And if I want to get an average of those two, I've got to reference them by their parameter names. Those are their names here inside the function. So getting that average. Also notice the arithmetic order of operations here. I've got to have those in parentheses, right? Okay, and then we're almost done with the function. It's now that I have the average, I'm going to assess that average. If it's greater than or equal to 90, that student has an A, and I'm going to assign that letter variable an A. Again, look at those single quotes there on the individual character. Okay, and then at this point, it's just more the same, or else if it's greater than or equal to 80, that's a B, 70, it's a C, and so on. So this is just syntax here. I think you can recognize the logic, though. It's pretty straightforward. So at this point, we're going to have either A, B, C, D, or F in that letter variable, and I'm returning that value back to main. And, you know, let me scroll down to the function call in main again. We looked at it once and we'll probably look at it again, but okay, so this is, you know, in main I'm asking, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm asking for the midterm and final grade, and then I'm putting in a call to that function at the top, my get letter grade function, and I'm passing the midterm and final into the parameters. Okay, so the function can ultimately average them and assign that letter grade. And when that letter grade is returned to main, I'm capturing it in a variable called LGrade. Remember that when a function returns a value, you've got to do something with that value. You have to capture it in a variable, or, you know, throw it into the output stream, or do something with it. Otherwise, it's just, you know, the function will run, but you get this return value and it just kind of falls into a black hole if you don't capture it or catch it in a variable. So that's what I'm doing here. So that is the anatomy of the function, and I'm going to end this video, and then we'll go into main in the next video.